Top 5 most frequently asked questions. Go. Is your real name Sir? Yes, it is, and no, I have not been knighted. 30-odd years before Jay-Z and Beyonce named their firstborn son Sir, Booker and Betty named their lastborn son Sir as well. And I just so happen to be the youngest of 10. People always ask me, what's your middle name? So I'll let you in a little secret. My mom was a fan of the Wild Wild West television show. You might have seen the reboot with Will Smith, but there was James West and Artemis Gordon. So Mom won with Artemis and Pops won with Sir. I've always appreciated that creativity to name me Sir. And it's that creativity that I've seen used throughout my entire life. Even as my work, I've seen it in an author, content creator, developing tools for productivity. Creativity has always been there. It's like it's flowing as freely as a breath of fresh air. I'd like for you to take a moment and take a deep breath, okay? Inhale and exhale, all right? Everybody still here? I didn't lose anybody, did I? Nobody feel like their neighbor took their breath away? Good, good, good. You see, because it's not really likely. That's the beautiful thing about clean air. For all practical purposes, no one person can deplete an entire air supply, right? And there's really no way of keeping it from someone. Now, those are also the primary reasons why clean air is considered to be a public good. But that's also the reason why creativity is as well. You see, creativity is all around us. We see it in every area of our lives. It's not just something that's confined to a canvas or a landscape. We see creativity in our politics, reform. The way that we prepare physicians to practice medicine. I mean, we use it in the morning when we're trying to find that extra 10 minutes of sleep. Think about technology, the way that we communicate with one another. We've gone from stone tablets to parchment, Gutenbergs to typewriters, Betamax to MacBooks, Dynatex to smartphones. Creativity and innovation at its finest. Now we're gearing up to go into a virtual world where the opportunities for creativity are endless. You see, I think that we can all have an impact with our creativity to the public good, even if it's not at a genius level. Some of you may be familiar with a NASA study. It followed 1,600 children between the ages of 4 and 5. As they studied the creativity in these students, they realized that they scored at 98% genius. Now, as time went on and they got older, they noticed that those levels began to decrease. So much so that average study, 31, scored at 2% genius. Now, when we really think about it, that's not really too much of a surprise, right? Everything seems to diminish a little bit with time. Our health, our hair, our weight, our patience. What are we to do now? Are we without hope? Are we incapable of impacting the world we live in without operating at a genius level? I mean, I think not. I think that we all have something that we can contribute to the good if we're aware of where that creativity comes from and how naturally it flows. You see, I believe that creativity is the fresh air to our public good, and it's up to us to inhale that creativity in order to exhale excellence. Deep breath. A friend of mine owns an art space called Let Art Breathe. As we were preparing for a conference recently, she shared with me how she came up with the name for her business. She said, I believe that art should flow freely. And when we stop our art from flowing, it's like we're holding our breath. I mean, me being the critical thinker and overanalyzer that I am, I started to think about the entire process of breathing, inhaling, exhaling. I mean, it may seem like a simple task, but it's really part of a complex respiratory system. I mean, we have our nose, our mouth, throat, windpipe, voice box, lungs, airwaves, all playing a critical role in our ability to breathe. Therefore, the development and cultivation of our creativity may seem like a simple task or reserved for a select few, but in reality, it's all around us. And it's inhaled in a similar way in which oxygen is, and that's through pressure. You see, when the lungs inhale, the diaphragm contracts and is pulled downward. At the same time, the muscles between the ribs contract and are pulled upward. As a result, air rushes into the lungs, giving us life as we know it. Now, our creativity, we inhale it from our communities, our families, friends, educational systems, even religion. Think about some of the most influential people in history. Think about their educational experience, their work experience, or even their family dynamics. Someone like Thomas Edison. Oh boy, Edison. You see, Edison was homeschooled, right? But that didn't necessarily come first. You see, his teachers described him as a difficult student. He went to school for about 3 months before he was homeschooled by his mother, who was his teacher. It's even known that Edison lost his hearing at a young age, which he said that he preferred because it allowed him more time for experimenting, inventing, being creative. I also found it interesting that his early work experience as an entrepreneur creating a newspaper at the age of 15 allowed him to cultivate a relationship between innovation and economics that would change our world forever. Edison was able to inhale inspiration that he needed in order to fuel his creativity. Now, we may not know, well, let me ask you this question. Do you know where you would be if certain things never happened to you? No. But we do know where we are because certain things did happen to us. Now, we may not know just how much each of these factors played in Edison's life, but we know that they're part of his recipe because they're part of his story. When we think about how much we inhale from our communities, religion, education, and environment, I think that one of the greatest examples is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But see, in order for us to dive into that creativity, we have to peel back some of the layers of Dr. King. In order to preach a nonviolent approach to a globally known violent problem, King had to be creative. Growing up seeing African Americans beaten and lynched in his community, he was still able to excel and graduate from high school at the age of 15. You see, in his autobiography, King mentioned that he didn't even have the same intentions to follow in his pastoral footsteps of his forefathers until he was convinced by a friend at Morehouse. There had to be something innovative that King thought that he could bring to the world, even if that world was just his congregation. I mean, after being arrested over 20 times, being stabbed 10 years before his assassination, which was nearly fatal, I think it's safe to say that there was some peace, patience, and grace accompanying King's creativity, but that creativity was there nonetheless. But we can't discuss our inhales without exhales as well. What we breathe life into, where we direct our intentionality. You see, it's through those inhales that we see wisdom, experience, and adversity. But it's through our exhales that we see achievement, progression, and transformation. What I've noticed is that where we direct our attention and intention is where our creativity resides. In other words, we excel where we exhale. You see, all great minds are able to inhale something unique from their environment in order to exhale excellence into society. Despite life's creative circumstances, they're all able to use their superpowers in order to impact the public good, with creativity being at the core. Perhaps the greatest unsung hero rarely mentioned in our textbooks is creativity. Deep breath. If you were to close your eyes and imagine the most influential people in your life, you will probably begin to see a pattern. A pattern of creativity that was used throughout their entire life in order to overcome adversity and to solve problems. It's through those works of art that we're able to find inspiration and direction. It's through those fresh breaths of air that we're able to dig deeper, build stronger, and have those fruitful conversations. I think that the biggest influence in my life would probably be my dad. Born in 1940, but it's eerie how similar our stories are to one another. You see, his mother and sister too both died at a young age, but he grew up without a sense of purpose or direction. America was still segregated, and it was customary to address people as sir and ma'am. So much so that he said that he would name his last child Sir, so that people had to address him with respect. How creative is that? But there's two things that I learned from that name. The first is that respect must be given as well as received. The second thing that I learned is that the name Sir always stands out. Whether it's good or bad, it's hard to forget that Sir did it. Now, that was a mischievous lesson learned for a mischievous teenager, and adolescent. But our creativity operates in the same way. You see, if we don't use our creativity for good, then it has no choice but to spoil. Your free will or your ability to create action is your most unique contribution to mankind. Therefore, it's up to us to use that creativity in order to create positive transformation, or it will spoil into damaging conformity. You see, we all have a superpower, and creativity is at the core that guides us in how we use it. How will you use yours for the public good? Thank you.